Now, before we dive in and introduce our first special guest, I wanted to take a bit of time to tell you a bit about me. I am a drag queen based in the greater Boston and New England area, and since winning Mixed Congeniality on the Boston Drag Gauntlet Cycle 8, I've gone on to produce several successful productions, including Boots at the Mill up in Lowell, Drag Me Out Thursdays at Man Ray, and I would be nowhere close to where I am today without the person that basically produced me. Please welcome your first guest, Miss Harlow Havoc.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is definitely the first take that we're doing this. Yes. Everyone, no need to adjust your listening ears or your looking eyes.
Don't rewind that DVR. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely what they're watching this on. It is I, Harlow Havoc. Harlow, the producer, Lynn, Elizabeth, Obama, Jackson Brown, Kay. Havoc. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bossi, I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me on this very special first episode of this podcast. People, if you're not applauding at home, let's get into it.
Absolutely. Before we get into our questions and everything for the day, I wanted to talk to you about how we met, specifically talk to the audience about how we met, because I think it's quite interesting how our relationship ended up forming. I was 18 years old when I met Miss Lynn Elizabeth, the Clown Dupree III Havoc. I was 18 years old, and fun fact, we actually matched on Tinder, bitch.
Yes.
We went on like a couple dates and eventually just sort of figured out that like, oh yeah, we're better off as friends, whatever. And little did I know that the first drag queen I ever saw would end up being my drag mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And that was what?
Back at Machine.
4 years ago?
5. Yeah, it was 2019.
Oh, my word.
I know. It's crazy to think how time flies like that.
Time flies when you're a piece of shit, you know?
I know. That's why it's been going so slow for me. It's felt like I've known you forever.
I feel like I'm 84, baby. So this is great. Yes, we met on Tinder all those years ago. I remember dragging you out. Dragging you out, pun intended.
Drag me out, yeah.
I remember asking you if you wanted to come out with me one night, like, explore gay nightlife. Someone who I met on Grindr years before had kind of done the same for me. Like, let me just, I guess, like, break you in. That's such a weird term. I'm so sorry. I'm just thinking about it like you.
It's true.
But yeah, I was just like, you know what? The best way that you can really feel comfortable with yourself is being in those environments, like being around people with that are just like you.
Yeah.
And who doesn't love to just go out and have a little fun? So I was like, you know what? We're gonna go. I was 21 at the time. I think you
I was
were
18.
Not. Yeah.
18. And we went to Machine.
We did on their 18 plus night on Friday. We were not sneaking in.
Rest in peace.
We're good girls.
Rest in peace. I know.
I miss Machine. I
do too. I miss that little like game room with like the pool tables where you could go and dissociate.
Small room?
Yeah.
Yes. I was just talking about this with Frenchie because Frenchie was one of the first TJs that I ever sent music to, and she was like, I'll never forget that small room, and like you sent me your music, and sometimes I didn't know if you were gonna show up because sometimes you just like would send me music. I was like, well, yes.
Oh my god, absolute trademark drag queen thing to do is just like, I'm gonna send my music, but I'm gonna call out maybe like 5 minutes before the show starts.
Yeah, right before you're about to announce my name. Incorrectly, by the way. Incorrectly, but yes.
Harlow Havoc. Yeah. No, seriously, the drag thing has been really, really crazy. I definitely feel like this year has been quite what more can I do? Like, it just keeps coming and coming. And I'm not complaining, honestly. It's been great. I've been very thankful for how much I've been able to do and the shows I've been able to put on. So it's really cool. But enough about me really quick. Tell me about you. Tell the audience about you. What are you doing in Boston right now?
Well, I'm actually not in Boston. I'm currently in Peabody, Massachusetts, filming this podcast with you. But
it's a very true statement.
I just got back from a music festival.
Work.
For those of you who don't know me, hi. You've been living under a rock, but not my issue. Sounds like a you problem. My name is Harlow Havoc. Out of drag, I use he, him pronouns because I am pussy. And in drag, I use she, her pronouns, for those of you that were wondering.
And in drag, you're a man.
Well, yes. Well, yes. I have been doing drag now about 7 years. I started down in Providence, Rhode Island. The first stage I ever performed on was Ego, for those that are familiar. I became more of a show producer probably like 3 or 4 years into my drag journey. It honestly started as more of like a way for me to make friends in the LGBT community, a way for me to express a little bit more of that artistic side that I had repressed for so long. I grew up always thinking that I was like not artistic, was like not able to draw, was just like drawn to more effeminate kind of like arts, like fashion and design, but I just didn't know like what outlet to really take that out in.
Yeah.
And drag kind of put it all together for me. So
Sure.
I also kind of hit the ground running, like allowed myself to just have so much fun with it and take notes, listen to others. And I've always just been a performer throughout my life. I was a dancer, gymnast, and cheerleader. So gay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really feel like I started seeing you more so in drag when you started like producing and like having the watch parties at Blend, and then you started doing more Fridays, and then just all of a sudden it like blew up and you've performed at Fenway Park.
Yes.
So sick with Lily Rose Velour. Love you, Lily. Hi, Lily. I know you're watching this.
Shout out my sister, my neighbor, my literal neighbor.
Literally,
She is
you
like
walked
2 doors
feet
down, baby.
Yeah, but no, I definitely think that you've also been an excellent producer in this scene, but we'll dive into that in a little bit. Total side note as well, in case you're wondering about Harlow's credentials, not only is she a very successful drag producer, she also has a fucking piece of paper called a degree, which I cannot relate to, but that's okay. What's your degree in again?
I was a marketing undergrad major.
That checks out a lot. So you know what? We're going to dive into our first couple questions here. The first thing that I want to talk to you about, specifically, obviously, marketing, it involves a whole bunch of things, including networking. And you have a million connections across the city and across the country. You're always telling me about like, oh yeah, I know this person here, this person in Chicago, this person in New York, whatever. I would love to know about your views on the importance of having networking and connections in drag.
Oh my goodness. Wonderful question. The importance of networking. I mean, drag in itself, any kind of art that you get into.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing that I always learned in my undergrad program, funny enough, which I'm still paying for, that good old 23,000 fucking buckaroos that I spent. The number one thing about marketing is you are supposed to be adding value to something. You are adding value. I could sell snow to a ski slope as long as I'm adding value that ski slope needs to believe that it needs more snow on the mountain. Does that kind of make sense?
I could sell snow to a ski slope, bitch. That's fucking funny. Apparently you need to. It hasn't snowed in New England in years.
I believe that's a Mac Miller. That's a Mac Miller quote from one of his, I could sell snow to a ski slope. No? Okay, anyway.
Beats me.
Anyway. But yes, I mean, you really do need to get out there and talk to people. That's the only way that people are going to understand you on more of a personal level. But beyond like the semantics of like building relationships, like there's so much. You could write like total dissertations on like how to build effective relationships and foster, all that kind of bullshit. Well, I'm going to give you the cheat sheet, right? I'm going to tell you what the tea is.
Exactly.
When you are in those spaces, if you are not a presence, no one's going to remember you. And that could mean something different, or it looks a different way to anyone, right? Everyone shows up in spaces differently, so you have to find what makes you different and what is going to make you stand out. And the networking can either be organic or it can be very, I guess, like inorganic in a way. In that you're forcing those interactions to happen.
True.
But if you're going out there and just talking to everyone in the room, there's at least going to be one person that remembers who you are because of that interaction.
That is very true. That's true. That was one of the first pieces of advice that you gave me when I started doing drag a couple years ago now, is that you always said to me, you're like, the thing that you have to do, like above all else, doesn't matter what you do on stage, what matters is that you own the room. When you walk in there, start remembering names, start remembering faces. It makes an impact. It does.
Absolutely.
So it's huge to get to know people around you. It's definitely super, super important. Who would you say is one of your biggest connections? Like, who's somebody that you've been like, wow, I can't believe I like have this person on speed dial, honestly.
Ooh.
Even if it's not like a drag person necessarily, like who's somebody that's been like super useful behind the scenes for you?
This is maybe one of those things that I've always learned, just again from maybe like my marketing background, but there's no such thing as someone who is a bigger connection than the other, right? It is.
That's a good point.
You can really find value out of any connection that you have. So put it like this. Prior to this music festival that I just came back from, a couple of my friends were doing like a candy making night. So candy meaning like the little friendship bracelets.
Yes.
Taylor Swift fans, you stole that from the ravers, just saying. Put that on record. Put me on record saying that. Keep this in. Randall, keep this in.
Keep this, Ron. Yeah.
So we got together and he had a friend over. My friend that we were visiting had another friend over.
Uh-huh.
And I had not met this person. He had come to Blend a few times. We'd never really interacted. He knew me basically through a hole in the wall.
Oh, yeah.
We had chatted. We had just been friendly with each other, kiki kaka, cutting up. And then maybe a week or so later, I had, in that initial interaction with him, I had plugged that I was going to be playing at Blend, so spinning music. And he came. He loved the music. Loved it. Had so much fun. Said it was so, unique.
It's hard not to enjoy your sets.
I'm going to do a shameless plug, please.
Yeah, honestly, no shame.
If y'all are not following me on things, I'm sure we'll get all that information at the end. But, big things on the horizons. We're starting to get into some production as well, so I'm going to be releasing some originals. So just be on the lookout. That's all I will say for now.
Hell yeah.
Lo and behold, he then, he was with one of his friends, and his friend also was just gagging on the night. He loved the music. He loved the vibe. He loved all of it.
Yeah.
His birthday is this Saturday.
Oh,
He now booked me to, at first it turned into, can you DJ a private party on a yacht? So I'll be doing that. But he also asked if I could be in drag. And I said, oh, would you like me to do a number as well? And he said yes.
Yeah.
So I charged him double. So now, again, it can be a random interaction that you have as long as you're making some kind of impact on that person and you're showing them the value that you have. You never know when that person is going to come around and support your art. And in turn, sometimes that turns into actual revenue, right? It's not always about making money, but those people then come back and say, oh my God, of course we want like a performing drag queen doing this, but okay, I also DJ. I also host and organize and produce shows. Like there's
multifaceted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to build up your kind of resume to ensure that you're hitting as many chickens as possible, pun intended.
Yeah, getting all your eggs in a basket,
Exactly.
Spreading them out to multiple baskets, if you will.
Yes.
Absolutely.
My baskets are woven.
Woven baskets.
Very.
Lots of woven baskets. Moving on, I guess. But there's a million different ways that people go about producing drag shows. Everybody has their own methods. We know, I'm sure, from the bring a flash drive with a MP3 on it to you need to send your stuff in 2 weeks in advance. You need to have this, that, and the third set up. As a producer, what keeps you organized with how many shows you're doing?
Oh my God. I mean, I think the
loaded question.
Yeah, very loaded question. I think the sad and sick reality of a lot of working drag queens, especially, is that everyone I don't I assume that people think that we have entire teams behind us doing this.
Oh, absolutely not.
And we don't.
No, of course not. No, it's crazy.
I sign my emails as my government name. And then a personal assistant to Harlow Havoc, just for a little bit more legitimacy.
Are you serious?
But it's just me.
Personal assistant to yourself.
Personal talent manager to Harlow Havoc, LLC. Why yes, I do. You can clock it. You can clock it, Mary.
Funny. That is really funny.
I mean, I've gotten way more legitimacy, and I'm able to kind of bargain up my prices because I'm oh no, I do in fact have a legitimate LLC, which is true. But there is some kind of I don't know, professionalism that comes with being like, oh, like my agent will reach out and handle my bookings. But that is completely not true. That is a farce.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely
I'm doing all that bullshit by myself.
It's us. I mean, I sign my emails. I have like my logo with the Bossi Boots and stuff like that. But I also have drag artist, show producer, like my titles from Gauntlet.
Cunt.
Yeah.
Bitch.
Whore.
Yeah.
Asshole. Yeah. Yeah, all those too. Cat owner, all of those. Yeah. But it definitely is, I definitely see where you're coming from with that. And I definitely think it's super true. Is that like we handle all of our shit on our own. Like I live off of spreadsheets right now. If I don't have like a list of people in front of me of like, okay, I know that these people are performing for this show, it will joggle my mind in some way down the road. Like I know that it'll be a mess. So that's why I'm happy that I can always refer back to like, okay, write it down the first time, remember it in the future. And it's good for having multiple shows because I feel like it's the most embarrassing thing being like messaging somebody about a gig on Thursday and they're like, I'm not booked. I'm like, oh, sorry, meant to ask this person down the line. Like it sort of goes both ways. Like I feel like a lot of people in drag queens and kings probably feel like, oh, I feel like a burden reaching out. But honestly, I kind of like when people reach out to me as a producer because chances are I'm missing something too.
I mean, there's, think about it like project or program managing. Like that's kind of what we are in ways as producers, right? 100%. There's so many moving pieces that there has to be some kind of like framework or idea in which you can like organize your thoughts. Something that really helps me, like you said, spreadsheets. I love that. Yeah. I have at this point so my hands in like so many different buckets that sometimes it's just hard to actually like even find time to write it in a spreadsheet. But I think the better of a communicator you are about this information and the more time you can give some of these procrastinating bitches is kind of the name of the game. Because
that is so true.
Drag queens are just notorious. It is like a running joke that we run on Drag Time.
Oh, it's not a running joke. It's also just objectively true.
I mean, it's like
it's
7:09 and it feels, like 5:30 to me. So I objectively,
absolutely.
Even not in drag at the moment, feel like I have a warped perception of time at all times.
Well, I guess it doesn't help when we're staying up until like 4 a.m. all the time.
Well,
because of the nightlife situation. So makes sense.
I mean, the bags under your eyes definitely look like it. Some of us get our beauty rest and we get our Restylane, but that's a little different. But
well, I'll be seeing you down at the Botox shop soon enough. Yeah, getting pumped. Absolutely.
The med spa.
The med spa. I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with my next question too. Going back to the communication thing. Having a clear voice is like critical, like making sure that information is clear. How does that affect like the venues that you work with, like the people that you do chat for the booking, like the people that give you the okay, like the decision makers in the business? How do you say like, okay, we're going to do this, that, and the third? Like what are some things that you always include to tell a venue and make sure that things go smoothly, at least when you get there, to make sure that nothing goes haywire?
I was going to say, I mean, one of the first key pieces in this is getting kind of the buy-in from the venues themselves.
Absolutely.
Because any performer is going to be looking for a stage to go on. It doesn't matter what that stage is, how large it is, the tech requirements that come with it. A performer wants to be on a stage, period.
That is true. It is.
So getting the buy-in from said venue space owners, managers of bars, venues, whatever it is, is that really essential like first step that you need. So communicating with them as far out in advance as the event is happening is crucial, but also being very clear about what your intentions are, right? Because a lot of venue spaces, what I found in conversations with some of those high-end contacts that I have, is that usually performers will come to them as I want to use your space. And that is almost like just saying like, I don't care about your goals as a business owner or what you're doing. Here's what I want to do. And they're also like, I'm sorry, who are you? Right? Like, I've never seen you like step in this bar before. I've never seen you be around this space before. So why am I giving you the show?
I guess that gives you and I an advantage over most other people, I guess, is that we have that double perspective. We've both worked in restaurant and cafe management. Shout out to a redacted cafe that we once worked for once upon a time.
The Siren.
if you
that
will.
Helps, if that helps.
Anyway, but we both have restaurant management experience. So whenever we're proposed with something, we like to also think of it of like, okay, going back to the marketing and networking, like what is adding value to this? How is this going to be worth it for both me as a drag performer and a producer, but also for your business? Like I always try to approach things when I'm going to a business saying, hey, so this would be great for me for this reason. Obviously, I get to have the space, but also for you as a business, you get these benefits while also simultaneously giving a space to the queer community.
Exactly.
So it's always good to approach it from a producer and a management standpoint, thinking like in your head, like, what am I doing to bring it to the table? What am I giving here? What is going to make this night worth it to somebody else that probably wouldn't know otherwise as well? So.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'd love to say that the world doesn't revolve around money and we can just be as creative as possible and go out and do the thing. But like at the end of the day, you know, we're in late stage capitalism and it is eat or be eaten. And we have seen now very, very recently certain shows that have been long-standing shows in the community not doing well.
Yeah, because falling victim to the dollar signs. It's true.
Yes, because managers and promoters will pull out of things if it's not worth it for them. So show producers like ourselves need to be a little bit more dynamic in that way that we are adapting to a changing market. We're adapting to a changing way of looking at nightlife even.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always like laws that are changing as well, right?
Oh,
like
absolutely.
Certain things about like you can't drink on like a patio after a certain time, or like there's no like loud music after a certain time in this neighborhood. So what can you do to like
work around it,
Exactly.
you know, make it happen and work with the cards that were dealt? It's like, you know, the unfortunate part of a lot of this stuff is that it's like, yes, like we're in late stage capitalism. As much as we'd love to not have money be involved, it's like if this is the name of the game, then it's like we have to play.
Why try to beat the system when you can like just be in the system? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I have maybe like a warped perception of it. It's like I hate it because it is an eat or be eaten, and I'm not like a competitive person in that way.
Sure,
but I'm also like I'm just trying to survive. So so if
that's the kicker.
Yeah, if I get offered an opportunity, I'm gonna take it.
God knows I'm currently very good at making my own flyers. I like making my own promotional material for a show, and I love the brand that I'm making and just getting better by practicing more. What defines a good flyer for you? What should a show have on a flyer?
Oh, not overwhelming. I already have ADHD. If I don't get the gist of what you're trying to give me in the first 10 seconds of me looking at it, I'm not going to continue to seek out the information from a standing flyer.
That's true.
Nowadays, I feel like everyone is moving toward more moving components to visuals.
Yeah, sure.
So it's not even just about standalone flyers. At that point, you might as well just print them out, put them on the side of the street, and no one's going to be seeing them.
Yep.
So any kind of visual, like, movement component to it is always like valued in my eyes.
That PowerPoint energy almost.
Very. It's a big PPT for sure.
.pptx. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say something that you can read well. Like it's succinct. And the text is clearly visible. There are plenty flyers that I see that the text it almost kind of blends into the background. So even like color choice is super important. Like just make sure it's readable to your audience.
Yeah, and like you don't want information getting lost on your flyer, people. Like it's important to me too. Like you saying the text thing is super huge for me because I also just can't see that well. So anytime that I'm looking at something, like I like to think when I'm making my own flyers, I'm like, oh, can you read this? Okay. Like, are the shadows good? Does it make the text pop out? You know, the small details like that are really, really critical to making sure that people don't miss something. As important as like, what time does the show start? How much is the cover? What's the address? You know, things like that are super, super important. So
I even things like what you said, what's the address? But also, I always get questions. Sometimes, not so much the blend flyers. The blend flyers are actually pretty well made, in my opinion. That some of them are a little like overwhelming. But they will always have the blend logo on them with the blend address as well as like a phone number or like call for reservations, go to this link or something of the sort, right?
Some sort of follow-up.
Exactly. There are plenty of flyers for shows that I've been involved of. I think I like recently got one where someone swiped up on like my story or something of the sort,
Sure.
like sent one of my flyers back to me. Not a flyer that I created. I am so flyer illiterate. I let my government persona, my PA, I let him take care of that.
Yeah.
But someone responded and said, like, where is this? And that to me is one of the worst questions that you can get, because it doesn't even matter who's performing, who's hosting, what's happening. In my opinion, you need to know like where something's happening.
If you don't know where it's going on, like, what are people going to do?
Exactly. And at the end of the day, that flyer, if it could literally be anywhere. Like, that, like, all the ones that I use for Blend, you could just swap out Blend for like Club Cafe, right? Legacy, Jacques.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people would be like, oh, okay, I'm going there now. Like, it could be the same thing, but they need to know where they're going.
And if you think about it this way too, you post something on social media, let's say 5,000 people see this flyer, and one person asks you, oh, where is this? You didn't include the location. There's now 5,000 people who don't know where the hell this show is happening. Like, that's definitely a huge lapse in, oh my God, that's crazy to think about. Not putting the police. I can't,
it's true. No, like, literally, where is it? And I was like, Blend. Or like, what do you mean?
I know, like, it may be obvious to you, but like, it takes spelling things out for the general public, because unfortunately, not everybody has my beautiful pink squishy brain.
Pink squishy brain.
Pink
That's
squishy
good.
brain. Yep.
Pinky and the squishy.
One in the pink, one in the squish,
Nobody says that, but yes.
I know.
Okay, fabulous. Wonderful. Next.
I guess that sort of loops back to something that we talked about previously too, is that like, lack of advertising and lack of promotion is such an easy killer for shows these days. Like, it matters that we're getting people in the door. Like, supporting local drag, it takes a village, but also it takes that sort of communication. Where do you think some shows have gone wrong? Like, where do you think you've seen, like, I've seen plenty of shows that even are just like, oh, there's like 10 people in the audience tonight. It's just like, even though the content that's going on is likely incredible, where do you think people go wrong?
I mean, once again, like, such a loaded question. We could spend hours on this topic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I tend to believe that the best marketing or promotion for such a niche art like drag is so much more in the word of mouth. You can get like a quick flyer thrown at you about something, especially with Pride Month coming out. Like, we have so many flyers for different events and things happening. Yeah. And this is just a tendency. I mean, another like huge pro tip for anyone listening out there. In terms of marketing, know your audience. Like, know who is going to be attending these shows and plug to them. So, for example, if you have an open stage night, does it make sense to put said open stage night on a night where you want the nightlife crew to come out, or you want industry people, like people that want to be in the industry or that are working in the industry, to come out? Because most drag performers also work in some form of nightlife. So they could be bartenders, they could be wait staff, they could be, right?
Oh my God, yeah, that's super common.
So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, those are like your main industry nights. More so like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I would say. But those are going to be your nights where like, oh, like I have Monday off. Like, I'm not working at the restaurant or the bar on a Monday. So I'd rather like get all up in drag and go to an open stage show, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the minute that you start throwing that open stage show on like a busy Saturday night, you're then kind of conflating who is the show for?
Exactly.
Right? Like, how are you actually getting those people in the door?
Yeah.
Because most of your audience, if they're like working queens like us, they're going to be working other shows. So they're not coming to your show. So if you're advertising your flyer to them, they're not showing up. They're working.
Especially in the city, too. Like, there's always so much going on a given weekend. Like, I host a show called Boots at the Mill up in Lowell, and that's on Saturday, but the timing of it kind of works out because it's earlier in the evening so that people could still enjoy, like, Saturday night nightlife, but also it's a different community that doesn't really have a lot of other drag in, like, the 30-minute driving range vicinity. Like, does that make sense? 30-minute radius.
Yes.
That's what I meant to say.
The vicinity. Yes.
So, like, that's another thing where, like, you have to think about it, and it's like, oh, okay, this works because of other factors. Like, if I were to do that at just a random restaurant in Boston at 10 o'clock on a Saturday, it would suffer because people are spread out. There's a lot of things going on at that given moment. So it's a very good point. Yeah. And I guess that also loops back to being organized, communicating with the venues that you're talking to, seeing what their typical clientele is like too. Like knowing the clientele of the business is a super important conversation to have, to me at least. I feel like I've learned a lot from like just chatting with GMs and being like, hey, so like what's the kind of crowd that normally comes here? And if they say, oh yeah, we get a really busy elderly population at 2 p.m. Maybe you don't want to put the burlesque show at 2 p.m. on a Sunday, you know?
And some people really don't think about that. And then suddenly they're getting, silicone titties shaken in their face in front of their eggs. Their eggs Benedict are soiled because my titty sweat is flopping
all
and
over.
flying.
Yeah. There are plenty of places where like drag brunch is like super common and acceptable too. But again, it's just really about knowing your space and knowing that. So I think that's all that we have time for today, but I just want to give a huge thank you once again to Miss Harlow Havoc, my drag mother. Where can the people find you?
You can find me on social media at Wreaking Harlow Havoc. For those of you who cannot spell, which is most of you faggots, unfortunately, that starts with a W. It's WREAAK. No, I can't even spell.
I'm going to say this fat can't spell either.
WREAKING, Harlow Havoc.
Gorgeous. Oh, gross. The tongue thing. Oh, my goodness. Well, it was absolutely wonderful having you on, and I hope that you will be back to this podcast sometime in the future as well. I'm sure you will be.
When you need my specialist expertise opinion, you let me know, because I don't know who you have planned for these guest spots moving forward, but it really is such a shame that you've set the bar so high for them. That, I mean, it's just going to be tough for all of these hookers to really outdo this.
I know. I also want to give a huge shout out to Peabody TV for having a wonderful space and for taking us in to produce such a unique podcast. Really, really thank you. And shout out to Randall for doing so much work behind the scenes for us. We absolutely love and adore you. And you can find me, Bossi Boots, on pretty much anything at Bossi Boots. That is BOSSI Boots, as in the shoe. And we will see you next month for the next episode of The Chicken Coop, your backstage pass into the ever-changing world of drag production. Goodbye, chicken.
Goodbye, baby.